Well, folks, I know some of you have been waiting for part 3 of my Triggering Every NFL Fanbase 2024 edition, and here it is. Now, I wanted to just point out that, yes, obviously the season is over now, and my Eagles are Super Bowl champions, but that does not mean that anybody is safe from my wrath, and that these teams, towards the end of the alphabet, because this is in alphabetical order, are safe from my wrath either. So sit back, relax, and try to enjoy what I came up with. This is Triggering Every NFL Fanbase 2024, part 3, New England Patriots. Now, this is the thing about the Patriots is that the Patriots are terrible, and everybody knows they're terrible. Their fans know they're terrible. And I still gotta be honest with you, I don't know how many Patriots fans are true Patriots fans, because we all grew up over the last, well, not all of us, but most of us grew up over the last 20 years watching this team win 12 plus games every year and 6 Super Bowls, doing all this crap, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of Patriots fans are really just Tom Brady fans in disguise, and we saw that when Brady migrated down Tampa Bay in 2020. So in order to trigger the Patriots fans, it's hard to say, well, guess what, you guys stink, because everybody knows right now the Patriots stink. I'm going to say that Tom Brady is nowhere near as great in the postseason as people remember him for being, and that's why I'm showing all these clips of him from games that he lost. I had to actually speed up the clips from all these games because there's so many of them. And yes, I even included the 2 losses he had in the postseason with Tampa Bay, because I know a lot of you quote-unquote Patriots fans are really just Tom Brady fans, and you fucking disgust me, you pieces of shit. God, I fucking hate Tom Brady so much and his fans. And also, to be fair, this also gives me a little bit of a place to vent about how disappointed I am, in a way, of Patrick Mahomes crapping his pants, because now I have to listen to Brady fans talk about Brady like he was immaculate. It's like, no, you take the tuck rule, okay? Seattle hands the ball off to Marshawn Lynch. Atlanta just fucking takes 2 knees and kicks a fucking field goal, and D Ford lines up onsides, and boom, that right there is 4 fucking championships taken away from Tom Brady. Brady's entire legacy, and by proxy the Patriots' entire legacy, is winning by accident. That's not greatness, that's luck. New Orleans Saints. Again, it's much harder for me to make fun and try and trigger fans of teams that currently suck, and they know they suck, and the Saints, they currently suck. They were 5-12 last year. Saints fans hate Derek Carr. So who can I make fun of? Well, one of the most beloved figures, if not the most beloved figure in the history of the Saints, is Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees, as we all know, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, had a unbelievably successful career. But guess what? Drew Brees also missed the playoffs 9 times in his career. He missed the playoffs 9 times, and he missed the playoffs 6 times with the Saints. Now, I understand what's going to be said. Oh, well, it wasn't his fault because his defense was bad and blah, 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 blah. But if you're truly that good, if you're truly as good as people say, and I'm not here to deny the fact that, yes, Drew Brees' defenses were very bad, but still, you can't be in the GOAT conversation if you're missing the playoffs this consistently in your prime, the way Drew Brees was. And he also did a lot of stat padding. That's why his numbers might look great, but he did a lot of stat padding and throwing when his team was losing. That's why his numbers were great. Although Drew Brees might be an overrated stat padding loser who missed the playoffs all the time, he's still not nearly as bad as the Saints organization itself, which tried to cover up a local clergy's sexual abuse of children. This is disgusting, and this is something, honestly, it's probably one of the most underrated things, because everybody associates the Saints with Bountygate. So this is a thing where you got Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson and all these motherfuckers in these high places for this organization, and it's just kind of like there's just so much horrible people. There's so many horrible people in charge of the Saints organization that are terrible. So fuck you, New Orleans, and fuck the Saints. New York Giants. Oh, the Giants. What can I make fun of the Giants for? Well, nobody, much like with the Saints and other terrible teams now, nobody that's a Giants fan is really going to be offended by me saying that they suck, because guess what? Everybody knows that. So you think back to less sucky times, and that's what we got. Eli Manning. Giants fans basically live at this point for Eli Manning to get into the Hall of Fame. And I was so happy when Eli Manning didn't make the Hall of Fame on the first ballot a couple days before my Eagles won their 2nd Super Bowl. So now Giants fans can't say that Eli Manning has more rings than our franchise. They can say that Eli has as many rings as our franchise, but that doesn't hit the same, and everybody knows it. So anyway, I was so glad Eli didn't make the Hall of Fame, because he wasn't deserving of it. You just look at, and I swear to God, I understand that there's more to the game than stats, but you look at Eli Manning, he's right there with Jacoby Brissett and Sam Darnold and Case Keenum and Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence. And I know people are going to say, oh, Eli played in a different era. Not really. He fucking retired in 2019, dude. Okay, he wasn't playing in the 80s and 90s. He was playing in this era. Passer rating, his numbers were dog shit. He led the league in interceptions 3 times. And the other thing about Eli Manning and why people say, oh, you can't call his 2 Super Bowl runs flukes because it happened twice. Well, actually, yes, I can, because every other time he made the playoffs, which wasn't very often, by the way, he went one and done, and his numbers were horrible. Outside of 07, 2011, over a 15 15-year span, he literally did nothing in the playoffs. Jack shit. Florida Marlins of the NFL. And aside from Eli Manning, Lawrence Taylor, who Giants fans idolize, is, or at the very least was, a convicted pedophile and just a terrible person overall. So fuck Lawrence Taylor, fuck the Giants, you guys suck, and I hate all of you. New York Jets. God, what could I say about the New York Jets? New York Jets fans literally get off on being insulted. New York Jets fans literally live to have people say that they suck. That's literally what their entire existence is predicated on at this point. So how do you trigger a Jets fan? Well, you have to find the one thing Jets fans hold sacred, and that's Darrelle Revis' 2009 season, where he obviously was amazing and he shut down a lot of top receivers. This is like one of the few things that Jets fans, they still hold on to and talk about like it was, you know, an epiphany or whatever. Now here's the deal. Darrelle Revis didn't even win Defensive Player of the Year that season, which people might forget about because it's the most talked about cornerback season ever, and he didn't even win Defensive Player of the Year that year. That went to Charles Woodson, who had better raw numbers, obviously, as you can see. So I want to trigger Jets fans by saying that Darrelle Revis didn't even win Defensive Player of the Year in his 2009 season. And before you tell me, well, that's a kind of a weak way to do it, how about you kiss my ass? All right, why don't you try and come up with something to fucking make fun of Jets fans for that'll insult them? Because Darrelle Revis not winning Defensive Player of the Year in 2009, which is the only single thing that Jets fans really care about at this point, because they have nothing else to cheer for, is, I think, pretty good. It's a pretty good reason to make fun of Jets fans because they stink. Philadelphia Eagles. I have nothing to say trigger the Eagles because guess what? We just won fucking Super Bowl, and that in and of itself is enough to trigger a lot of people. So I hope that the Eagles winning the Super Bowl triggers a lot of you because guess what? This is a team that is very young and they have a lot of talent still, and this is not going to be a one-time thing. I know everybody seems to say that after the Super Bowl's over and the team wins, but this is a team, it's going to be them. They're one of the favorites in the NFC for the next several years at least. This is a team that's here to stay. So all of you haters that don't like the Eagles and hate the Eagles and think we suck, you can kiss the fast part of my ass, baby. Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, the easy target here would be Mike Tomlin and talk about Ben Roethlisberger being an alleged multiple-time rapist, which I certainly have made enough notice of in my time on YouTube. But I feel like Steelers fans, if I just went in on Mike Tomlin being bad, they would just agree with me. If I said, oh, you guys haven't won a playoff game since 2016, oh, they would agree with me. But again, so you have to go, what do Steelers fans hold dear? And that's the memories of the Steel Curtain from the 1970s when they won 4 Super Bowls. But guess what? Those 4 Super Bowls don't actually count because the Steelers back in the 70s, the Steel Curtain, were on shitloads of steroids, allegedly. And I say allegedly just to avoid being sued. But these guys were jacked to the tits, allegedly, and this stuff. And it was a massive advantage for them, allegedly, because they didn't have any opponents that were doing the same thing as they were, allegedly. So really, those 4 rings that they got in the 70s, they don't really count. So guess what? That means that the Eagles and the Steelers really have the same amount of Super Bowl rings. Isn't that amazing? So the Steel Curtain in the 70s, they were all doing steroids. They were all cheaters, allegedly. And there's so much evidence of it too if you just Google it. So just do it. Do your due diligence. That's what I did. That's why I'm a class act. San Francisco 49ers. It's now been 30 years since the San Francisco 49ers won a Super Bowl. And I say that every time it seems to trigger 49ers fans. This is a team, the Dallas Cowboys have won a Super Bowl more recently than the 49ers. It just doesn't feel like it because the Niners have made a lot more deep playoff runs, aka after the divisional round, than the Cowboys have in the last 3 decades. But at the same time, the 49ers have also been very hit or miss. Like coming into this season, you guys were supposed to be Super Bowl favorites because you were that close to winning it last year, and now because you guys had a couple boo-boos and a couple incidences and a couple injuries, blah, 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 blah. You guys went, what, 6-11, 7-10, and you missed the playoffs miserably. So you guys either find ways to choke away Super Bowls or you don't even come close to making the Super Bowl by missing the playoffs with double-digit losses. One of your favorite players ever, Frank Gore, once dragged a naked person by their hair in an assault incident. This should be your logo, just a bright red Cowboys logo. That should be your real logo. And also, this is what happens when you live in San Francisco. As a reflection of them choking away games, so many of San Francisco's sidewalks are full of shit. I mean that literally. I'm not joking. They are full of shit. There are statistics out there. There are studies out there. So if you're out there in San Francisco and you want to watch a football team choke away championships and step in dog shit or step in human feces, then San Francisco is the best place to be. Seattle Seahawks. Again, I just, some people are going to sit here and say, oh, well, of course it's going to be the Malcolm Butler play, but I don't think enough people understand that it's not just the Malcolm Butler play. The Seahawks had, I believe, 5 possessions in Super Bowl 49 with a chance to basically seal the game, and they couldn't do shit any time. And that's why when you look at the Butler play, it's not just terrible because of what happened in the moment. moment, it's also because that basically killed the Seahawks franchise. The Seahawks, haven't been relevant. They haven't made a conference championship game since Super Bowl 49. So literally, if you just hand the fucking ball off to Marshawn Lynch like you should have, and you did earlier in the game, this is why I get fucking upset about it, because you literally did it earlier in the game in the second quarter, and you scored a touchdown by handing the ball to Marshawn Lynch. You would have won 2 Super Bowls in a row, and I wouldn't have had to hear about Brady having 7 rings. So guess what? Fuck you, Seattle. God, and you stupid fucking grunge band. Goddamn coffee tastes like dog shit. Fuck God, I fucking hate you. You're never gonna be relevant. Your relevancy went out the window the moment that pass hit Malcolm Butler's hands. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, folks, it's time for another year of Is Your Team the Worst Winning Percentage Team in NFL History? And guess what? The Buccaneers have won it again. They are 32nd all-time in win percentage, and I feel like people who are Buccaneers fans, they know that, so that's not really triggering per se, although it should be, because literally team sucks, figuratively, but in recent years the Buccaneers have actually been very, very talented. But for most of your franchise, that's what happens when you start 0 for 26. Anyway, the biggest thing, again, it's always, what do Buccaneers fans hold near and dear to their hearts? And Mike Evans is the answer there. Mike Evans, everybody who's a Buccaneers fan holds Mike Evans near and dear to their heart because he has his 1,000-yard season streak at 11. He's caught over 100 touchdowns. He's a great player. We all understand that. He's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. He should, if Devin Hester is. But the thing about Mike Evans is he's never been a quote-unquote dominant receiver, which to me is more important than having longevity as a receiver. It's kind of like Frank Gore, who I just talked about with 49ers segment, has all the counting stats and will be in the Hall of Fame, but it's like I can't really remember a dominant performance by Frank Gore. I can't remember a famous run by Frank Gore, even though he has all the stats. What I was going to say was Mike Evans has just 2 of the top 200 receiving yard seasons ever in NFL history, despite having 1,000 yards in every single season. If you look at his season close, there was one year he had 1,001 yards. There was another year 1,006 yards. This year he had 1,004 yards. So he's a bit of a stat patter. He's into the stat. So there's been a couple years there where he's been literally within 5 or 6 yards of not getting 1,000 yards. His best season ever in terms of receiving yard is 47th on the all-time receiving yards list in a single season. So not even in the top 45. He's a guy. He's a very good player. You can even say he's a great player, but he's not in that Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Calvin Johnson class. Not even close. Tennessee Titans. How do you slander or how do you trigger fans of the worst team in the league? Well, you go back again to happier times for them, and happier times for the Titans was the Steve McNair era. Now, Steve McNair, as we all know, he went out with a bang, no offense, but he was a terrible playoff quarterback. This is the one thing about Steve McNair that nobody ever talks about when they talk about him. In terms of, oh, Steve McNair was a Hall of Fame quarterback. No, he was, okay? He was a Hall of very good quarterback, but he was absolute dog shit in the playoffs. Just look at these numbers in the playoffs. Just absolute dog shit. He was terrible in the playoffs, and he's also known for winning a co-MVP with Peyton Manning in 2003, which again, and he had a very good year, 2003, probably his best season, so I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it was a terrible season by any means. It was a very good season, but he wasn't as good as Peyton Manning, and he had no right sharing that award with Peyton Manning, if for the simple reason that he missed 2 games, and the Titans went 2-0 in those games, and they didn't even win their division. Peyton went 2-0 versus the Titans that year. So if by every single measure you could think of, if you're talking about just individual stats, Peyton was better there. If you're talking about team results, they had the same final win-loss record, but Peyton actually had better starting win-loss record because Steve McNair didn't start for 2 of the Titans' wins. So did Steve McNair deserve his co-MVP? Absolutely fucking not. So no, Steve McNair, overrated. That's my thing. Washington. Oh look, it's Robert Griffin III doing a stanky leg with his knee. He probably would have been your franchise quarterback for the next decade or so, but he was a gimmick quarterback and he couldn't read defenses, and that was quickly exposed once he got hurt. But you guys all know that. How about you guys finally getting rid of Dan Snyder, and you do all this crap, you get rid of Dan Snyder, and you make it back to the NFC Championship game, and you upset the Detroit Lions, and everything is great, and then you get your fucking ass kicked, belt to ass, 32-point loss to the Eagles, and this is as good as it's gonna get. This is as good as it'll get for you guys, because Jaden Daniels is already 40 years old. Like, there's not, like, this is as good as it's gonna get for you. And Jaden Daniels, whatever, he's an okay player, but it's just, making the conference championship game is not something that's easy to do, even though the Chiefs make it look easy, okay? It's not. So you guys think, oh, we'll be back here every year. No, you're not. No, you're not. This was your chance. This was your chance, and you blew it. You blew it big time with fumbles and not being able to execute offensively. And finally, I hate to say this, but Sean Taylor was just overrated. Tragic story, but he was overrated.